It's time, Cougar Nation. Cougar Tracks. The best season analysis with BYU insider Mitch Harper on KSL NewsRadio and on video every day on the YouTube page for KSL Sports.
Welcome into Cougar Tracks here on the KSL Sports YouTube and KSL NewsRadio, your legacy home of the Cougars. It's Friday, February 6th, Super Bowl weekend coming up, and it feels like a big Super Bowl event for BYU basketball. Must win for the Cougars as they get set to host an all-Cougar matchup at the Marriott Center. Top 25 clash. Number 8 Houston comes to town against the number 16 BYU Cougars, who are looking to end a losing streak. And let's dive into that matchup and get to know the Houston Cougars in our top story of the day.
The top story of the day. The biggest story in the world of BYU sports right here on Cougar Tracks.
BYU basketball looks to end a 3-game losing streak and doesn't get any easier in the Big 12 as the Cougars welcome the 2-time reigning Big 12 champion Houston Cougars into the Marriott Center. Tip-off at 8:30 here on KSL NewsRadio on Saturday night. Pregame at 7:30. And to get the lowdown on the Houston Cougars, who come into the matchup ranked number 8 in the country, 20-2 overall, Kris Gardner of the Houston Roundball Review joins me. And Kris, this season for Houston, 20-2, like I said, how would you assess how this season's gone for Kelvin Sampson's squad?
Mitch, thank you for the invite. Thank you for thinking of me. It's, I guess, gone as expected. The wins have, well, let me backtrack. The wins, they probably won more than I thought they would based on how many new faces, not just the freshmen like Kingston Flemings and Chris Enack and Isaiah Harwell, but also the guys like Chase McCarty, redshirt freshmen, guys who are in new roles. I mean, even Emmanuel Sharp is a leader now. He's a team leader. So more was expected of him. So I'm surprised they're 20-2 right now. It took a while for them to adjust to defense, Houston Cougar defense, Kelvin Sampson defense, and I think they are finally getting that part of it down pat, where everybody's on a string. So that's, I think, going to be a key going forward for the rest of this season.
Well, that's what I was going to follow up with, Kris, and you kind of led me into my next thought. You know, the last 2 games, Houston's allowed 55 points or less to its opponents. So do you feel like it's starting to show signs, this defense, of what we've grown to expect in the Big 12 from Kelvin Sampson's teams?
It's starting to show signs, and it's guys that are finally getting healthy as well. JoJo Tugler, and I'm guilty of this, and I've covered the team for years. JoJo Tugler missed the summer because of surgery on his foot. So he didn't practice with the team. He was getting around campus on a scooter. So nothing in June, July, August, September. He got cleared late September, October. So his timing has been off for November, December, a lot of January. So he's just not rounding into shape, and he's one of the best defenders in the country. So combine his injuries with Khalifa Sacco's injuries, and Khalifa Sacco is a newcomer as well, so he had to learn the system. And Isaiah Harwell was injured, coming off surgery. So all those guys missed summer workouts. So they were behind where everybody else was playing and practicing and learning the system and getting used to everything. So now I think the team finally getting healthy is another plus, helping the defense.
Do you think this year's team has more offensive firepower than recent years? And last year's team was really good offensively, and I think underrated nationally. I think people kind of always frame Houston as just a great defense, no offense. Last year's team was so explosive, but do you think this might be one of the best offensive teams Houston's had in a while?
Yes, I do for sure. I think the ceiling for this team offensively is much higher than probably any of the previous years under Coach Sampson. You have different guys who can score one-on-one. Kingston Flemings has shown he's a walking bucket. Chris Enack is a pick and pop guy as a big man, 6'10". He's got a 3-point shot that he's becoming more consistent with. Mala Suzanne took him a while to adjust to playing off the ball, with the ball more in Kingston Fleming's hands. And Emmanuel Sharp is one of the streakiest 3-point shooters in college basketball. And once he's on, he's on. You wouldn't teach his shooting form as a coach to anybody else, but it works for him.
Talking with Kris Gardner, Houston Roundball Review here on Cougar Tracks as we get ready for the All Cougar matchup Saturday night, BYU and Houston, top 25 clash in the Big 12. And last Saturday, BYU was in a high-profile prospect matchup with A.J. DeBonsa, Darren Peterson. This go-around, it's, as you've noted, Kingston Flemings, who should be a lock to be a top 5 pick next summer. I'm curious, Kris, was it expected that Kingston was going to be as good as he is? I mean, maybe that's a high bar as a freshman, but, came in with some high accolades, top 20 recruit nationally, but has he been better than anyone even could have imagined how good he's been this season?
He's been better than I imagined. I'll say it like that. One of my colleagues on our podcast, who's an alum and former pro player and played at the Coogs in college, Robert McKeever, he saw this and he told us in the offseason that he thought Kingston was special. And he's reminds us almost every show at how right he was about Kingston Flemings. But ironically, in October, Coach Sampson told the media that Kingston would be back for his sophomore season. And Kingston Fleming said at that time he'd be back for his sophomore season. Fast forward to now, there's no way. No way. He's a top 5 pick, top 6, whatever you want to say, top 10 at worst. He's going to the NBA. He's one and done.
How do you think Houston defensively attacks DeBonsa, who, like Fleming's going to be a one and done, and Richie Saunders as well, who's entering his senior year? How do you think they try to defend these two for BYU?
Emmanuel Sharp cannot guard both of them, so he'll take one of them. And then I'm curious to see who's going to guard. Let's say Emmanuel guards AJ. Well, that leaves Richie Saunders, who I'm very high on. I think he's going to be a solid pro as well. That's a tough cover for Chris Sinak. I don't think Chris can do that. Will JoJo Tugler get that matchup? If JoJo does it, JoJo has to stay out of foul trouble. And he has had a propensity this season to get in early foul trouble a lot. So will Coach Sampson and staff risk that? Or they try Milos Uzan. Milos is not the athlete and not the great defender one-on-one that the other guys are. So I'm kind of curious to see how they're going to defend both those guys. And then, of course, Rob Wright, I think that'll be Kingston Fleming's assignment. And that's a tough task for a freshman on the road. So we'll see.
How do you think, Kelvin Sampson's handled coaching up a younger team than we've grown accustomed to with Houston having, Sinak and Fleming's 2 freshmen being key guys? How has he adjusted to that, or how has he handled coaching a freshman-heavy team?
He still coaches them like any other. He teaches them all the same. He has the same expectations, no low turnovers, defend and rebound. And he has spoken very highly of Chris and saying how Chris looks him in the eye, has never had a bad day of practice. And that's important as freshmen. And these guys came in highly touted. But once they come to the program, they're like everybody else. They're not treated like 5 stars. They still have to earn their stripes here in the program. And that's one thing Coach Sampson makes clear. It's his program. You will acquiesce to his coaching style or you won't play. Bottom line.
Last thing for you, Kris. Again, Kris Gardner, Houston Roundball Review. Check out his fine work. You can see him on X as well. What's the ceiling you think for this year's Houston team as you continue to move forward, even beyond this BYU game on Saturday? What's the ceiling of this group, you think?
I think this team can go to the Final Four. This team can win the championship. Unlike last year's team, I really believed, it doesn't matter because it's college basketball and it's one and done in the tournament. Last year's team, I think, would have won a series 3 out of 5, 4 out of 7 against Florida. This year's team, I'm not sure that's the case against Arizona, for example. I think Arizona is the best team in college basketball. But, Mitch, you know this. Come tournament time, all you have to do is win one game. Beat that team and move on to the next round. And I think this team can win 6 in a row and get that first championship in program history.
It's going to be a lot of fun Saturday. I think these two programs, seeing Houston is the top of the mountain in this league, and they've taken off in the Big 12, and BYU looking to keep up and end the losing streak, and it doesn't get any easier in the Big 12. Kris, thanks for the time. Check out Kris Gardner's fine work at the Houston Roundball Review, and hope to talk again down the road.
Thank you, Mitch. You take care.
That's Kris Gardner here on the Houston Roundball Review. Cougar Tracks Appreciate Kris for joining me to break down these Houston Cougars who are just quietly laying in the weeds. Everyone's talking about Arizona. People are talking about AJ DeBonsa and Darren Peterson, and Houston's just doing their thing. Only 2 losses this season. Really good basketball team. Excited to see this game in action. We'll talk more about it around the corner here on Cougar Tracks, and it's powered by KSL Sports. Welcome back into Cougar Tracks here on the KSL Sports YouTube page. Mitch Harper here with you every single day, talking BYU sports, football, basketball, all year long. BYU talk here on the legacy home of the Cougars, KSL NewsRadio and KSL Sports YouTube. Appreciate if you'd be so kind to give a thumbs up to this video, subscribe to KSL Sports YouTube, or subscribe to the audio podcast wherever you get your podcast. So coming up on Sunday, Super Bowl 60 needs no introduction. Levi Stadium in Santa Clara. Patriots versus Seahawks. Always excited for the Super Bowl. Last chance to watch some football, which brings a tear to my eye because it's a long drought between February and then the Hall of Fame game in late July, early August. We got a long grind ahead of us after Sunday, but we do have one former Coug who's going to be in the Super Bowl, a guy that I was a big fan of during his time at BYU, Khyiris Tonga. Excited for Khyiris to see him in action. I'm glad that he's having this success, too, with the Patriots. Defensive tackle for New England. He's been a nice piece along that defensive line for a very tough New England defense that's only giving up 8 points per game in the playoffs. And Mike Vrabel has just completely changed the fortunes of New England once again. I thought they were down and out. I thought New England was done, and I was excited about it. As a Raiders fan, I just do not like the Patriots. All full transparency, not a fan of New England. But I'll pull for Khyiris to get it done. And seeing Khyiris in the Super Bowl gets me to think back to his time at BYU. He played at BYU from 2017 to 2020. And I remember when Khyiris, he was a signing day addition in 2017 that was a little bit of a surprise. There was some buzz that there was going to be some former Utah signee that Kalani's going to add who's coming back from a mission. It was just, what is this man's name? And then it came official that it was Khyiris Tonga. And there was buzz about Khyiris. I remember he arrived midway through fall camp in 2017, but there was a feeling of this guy's going to be big time. There were some crazy comparisons to him, but I remember seeing him in person for the first time, all 6'3", 330 of him, and I'm just like, man, if this guy can stay healthy and if he can understand this defense, his presence alone will make an impact. And he slowly but surely got better and better and better after each and every season at BYU. But even after his BYU career concluded, I thought to myself that Khyiris, his best days in football were ahead of him if he got an opportunity in the NFL. Because I thought the version of Khyiris at BYU was still scratching the surface. I still kind of felt to myself, Khyiris has more meat on the bone, more chicken on the bone that he could be as far as a football player. And we've seen that in the NFL. He was drafted in 2021, 7th round, and he's just kind of found opportunities. Chicago, Arizona, Minnesota, now with New England, getting ready for the big game coming up on Sunday, 4:30 kick. It's Khyiris Tonga and the New England Patriots against the Seahawks. I think it's a pretty cool matchup. It's two teams that I don't really care for that much. Sam Darnold, I'm excited to see how he performs in this game. Everyone just labels him as an absolute bust and a failure. But really, he's a good quarterback. Anyone that's a highly drafted pick has a chance to be really good in the NFL. The talent is always there. And hopefully with the case of Sam Darnold, hopefully somehow, some way, the floodgates open for Zach Wilson. I bring that up with Zach, who was Khyiris Tonga's quarterback when he was playing at BYU. The similarities between a Jets franchise that just ruins anyone. Sam Darnold was ruined by the Jets. Zach Wilson was ruined by the Jets. I hope one day if Zach can continue to stick around and maybe get a crack, maybe he can have his chance. I thought it could be in Miami, being the backup to Tua, but season comes to an end and they go with Quinn Ewers, and that really worked with Mike McDaniel, who's no longer the head coach. He's now with the Chargers as the OC, so props to you for doing that, I guess. But hopefully Zach can one day find a chance to just keep hanging around, because Sam Darnold's always been a good QB. I thought he was really good at USC. I know he had that game against Utah in 2016 when Lendell White, I remember after that game, they lost to Utah in 2016 in Salt Lake, his first career start at USC, and Lendell White was just ready to send Sam Darnold and Clay Helton and just fire them sight unseen and just get them out of the program completely. But Darnold won a Rose Bowl, was really good at USC, and he's always been a good quarterback, and now he's strung together two awesome seasons, one with Minnesota, now with the Seattle Seahawks. Seahawks are the favorite. They're just mowing through teams. And I thought to myself, too, last night, Jackson Smith-Njigba, he wins Offensive Player of the Year. To circle it back to BYU, I thought there was a case that Puka should have won it. Maybe had Puka reached the Super Bowl, maybe that would have been the trump card for Puka to win it over Jackson Smith-Njigba. I was looking at the comparison. Jackson Smith-Njigba played 17 games, all 17. Puka played in 16. Puka had more catches, 129 grabs to Jackson Smith-Njigba's 119. Receiving yards, 1,793 for Smith-Njigba, 1,715 for Puka. Puka had equal receiving touchdowns, more rushing yards, and again, one less game. I thought Puka was the Offensive Player of the Year this year. I know, I'm a little bit blinded by Puka. I've always thought he's the man, and it's a bummer that the Rams are not in this. I would have loved to have seen Puka and Khyiris Tonga in the Super Bowl, but eventually we'll see Puka down the road. I can only imagine Puka's going to get a crack at this thing, as long as he's not doing any skydiving. I don't blame him, though, throwing his shot. Sidney Sweeney, I'm shooting that shot too, man. Good on you, Puka. But I'm excited for the Super Bowl. One thing I will say, though, about the Super Bowl parties are always kind of tricky to me. I don't know what it is, but as someone who their career is in sports, I love watching sports, obviously. But sometimes being in an environment where everyone is just talking, it's hard for me. And look, it's very first world problems, but I'm so used to when I'm watching a game without many distractions. Whether it's work with BYU games, I'm in the booth, I'm on press row, I'm watching the game intensively. Like, I'm watching it very closely. And same goes for just from watching a random Big 12 basketball game, Big 12 football, NFL games. I just want to watch. Super Bowl, it's tough, though, because you just got a bunch of people chatting. They want to talk about this and that because they're not really invested in it. And it's like, oh, third commercial in. Hey, we got to watch the commercials. I just want to watch some football and with minimal conversation, but that's kind of not part of the deal with Super Bowl parties. Anyway, there's a little bit of a downside, I think. I've never been guy that is like, hey, let's go to a loud environment and watch a sporting event. I've never been that guy. Like when people say, let's go to like a sports bar and watch a game, like I need to hear the audio. I need to hear the commentators. I need to be in an environment that's just very comfortable to me, whether that's in the stadium, whether that's in press row. Like, I don't know. Like, I just need to be in an environment where I can just focus completely. I'm not one to watch sporting events in parties. Maybe that's the introvert side of me coming out and I struggle with that. Still, the positive side to Super Bowl parties, I love the food, obviously. The food's fantastic. One thing, though, I struggle with, I was saying this to Steve Bartle on the KSL Sports Zone, I never understand when people say, hey, what time's the game? How do you not know? It's 4:30. Every year, it's 4:30. My wife, I think it was on Wednesday. Hey, what time's the game this Sunday? My wife always is aware of the big game, sure, so that's great. But how do you not know the time? 4:30. Every year, this is 4:30. We know Christmas is always December 25th. How do you not know Super Bowl is always 4:30? This is a tradition. Every single year, we do it the same year. 4:30. If you want to get technical, I think it's like 4:32, I think. Anyway, I'm excited for Super Bowl. Last game of the season. I'm going to go with, too, a prediction. Even though they're an underdog, I'm going to go with the Patriots. I think the Patriots win. I'm going to trust Vrabel. Again, I don't really want to see the Patriots win, but I want Khyiris to get a ring. And I'm going to trust Vrabel, man. He's been in this game before as a player. And the Patriots organization, I trust them. And I think Drake May probably should have been the MVP over Stafford. So I'll go with the Pats to get it done in an upset over a Seattle team that's just mowing through opponents. But I think New England pulls off the upset here in Santa Clara at Levi's Stadium for Super Bowl 60. Final break. Let's get to my score prediction for BYU basketball against Houston around the corner here on Cougar Tracks. Welcome back into Cougar Tracks here on KSL News Radio and the KSL Sports YouTube page. Mitch Harper here with you, getting ready for BYU versus Houston. Tip-off on Saturday, 8:30 p.m. Pre-game begins at 7:30 right here on KSL News Radio. We'll have coverage on Saturday, noon to 3, Cougar Sports Saturday. We'll get you ready for game day between the Cougs, BYU Cougars, and Houston Cougars. One of two teams that BYU has not defeated as a member of the Big 12. These Houston Cougars, coached by Kelvin Sampson. And can you just not appreciate how awesome Houston basketball has become? And they've always had a great history. Go back to the 60s, 50s. There were some dip years, the Penders years, and there was a gap about 20 years where they didn't do really anything. And then Kelvin Sampson rolled in, and he's changed them completely. And I don't think there's any sign of slowing down when you look at the future recruiting classes that they have. And they've got the coach in waiting in his son, Kellen Sampson. Houston's here to stay. And that's awesome because Big 12 basketball is awesome, and you need programs that you can consistently count on to be big dogs. And Houston is a big dog in college basketball, and it's a great measuring stick opportunity. And BYU comes into this game reeling. Losers of their last four of their last five, 3 in a row, the Cougars are on a losing streak where they're struggling. Still, with that said, I think BYU comes into this game. They are an underdog, as they should be, but I think this is a game where they could pull off the upset. I don't look at this Houston team as suffocating as past Houston teams the 2 previous seasons. They are turning the page, though, and showing signs of that lockdown defense that we've grown accustomed to. They've been outstanding. They completely shut down UCF earlier this week. And Houston, they only made 3 3-pointers, and they still hammered UCF. They're unbeatable at the Fertitta Center. No one beats them. No one. But on the road, I think there are opportunities where they could be had. And with some potent offenses like BYU has, this is a year where Houston could give up some big numbers potentially. But this is a gut check time for BYU basketball. And one thing about this game that's interesting is that Houston knows who they are. Even though they're still kind of evolving as a team with some youngsters as, Chris Senak, and then, of course, Kingston Fleming's the superstar guard who's going to be a top 5 pick. They know to their core who they are because of Kelvin Sampson, the way they're coached. I think BYU is trying to figure out who they are in this adversity. And man, 3-game skid to 4, that could easily jump up to 5 with a trip to Baylor on Tuesday, where that building's going to be hyped beyond measure to boo the life out of Rob Wright III. So this is an important game, and it's not easy to end a skid against a Houston team that's only lost 5 times since joining the Big 12 in this conference, the toughest league in America. This is a big dog program, 6 straight NCAA tournaments where they've reached the second weekend. Last year, they were in the national title game. And this year, they're probably the most explosive offense they've had to date this season, because you look at what they've done at the three-point line. They're 12th in three-point shooting in the Big 12 in conference play at 32.9%. They're 8th in three-point defense, but they'll let it fly. They had a game against Baylor earlier this year where they put up 39 threes. But they also can win games, like I said earlier this week, where they only made 3 threes. Houston can win in a variety of ways. But one thing you know about them is that they're going to be incredibly tough and physical. And BYU's got to bring that physicality. And BYU, to their credit, they're quietly one of the best rebounding teams in the Big 12. Their number 1 offensive rebounding team, BYU, is in Big 12 play. They're going up against a Houston team that's got the best offensive rebounder in the league in JoJo Tugler. He's going to be one you've got to keep off the glass, because the thing about Houston, one thing that always stands out when you watch their games, they get every 50-50 ball. They attack those 50-50 balls, man. I think that is going to be so key in this game. BYU won. They've got to take care of the basketball, because Houston is number 1 in Big 12 play in assist to turnover ratio. They've got a plus 7.44 turnover margin against their opponents in league play. And for a BYU team that's currently 14th in turnovers, that's not a recipe for success. And Houston's really good at generating steals. That's kind of problematic too, considering how BYU fared against another good team in steals in Oklahoma State. And no one's going to put Oklahoma State on the same pedestal as Houston. So BYU's got to take care of the basketball, but when the ball is loose and it's a 50-50 ball, you've got to come up with some of those, because that is Houston's bread and butter, getting the 50-50 balls. And BYU has got to get those in this game. I look for a Richie Saunders to be someone to get those type of balls and keep the possession on BYU's side and extend a possession if you can, because if there's an opportunity to get a second look, you've got to get that ball and keep possession, because that's what Houston does. They will just suffocate you, and they will absorb those 50-50 balls, loose balls. JoJo Tugler and Chris Sinak, top 20 in rebounding in the league. They combined for an average of 14 boards per game. Kingston Flemings versus A.J. Dubonsa. It's a heralded prospect matchup again. Fleming's going to be a point guard, obviously top 5 pick. A.J., he's averaging 25 points per game in Big 12 play. Fleming's at 19.5. These are 2 outstanding prospects. They're going to be some faces of the NBA starting next year. An elite prospect game with these 2 leading the way in this matchups. I'm really curious to see how BYU responds, though, because this BYU team right now, they're being challenged. Does Kevin Young make any sort of lineup change potentially? Does he insert Hadim Boop for Moo Davis? I think there's an argument to be made against this Houston team, because I think Boop could cause some nice battles against a guy like JoJo Tugler, keep him off the glass. But at the same time, you need some three-point shooting, because BYU, when they're hitting the 3, that's an X factor in these games. Against Oklahoma State, they knocked down 13. Against Arizona, they knocked down a lot of threes, yet still came out on the losing end. But I think you got to hit the 3 ball at a high clip again in this game. You have to. You got to shoot it well, and you've got to jump out to a fast start. You have to. By the first media timeout, BYU's got to have a lead. They need a lead, because if they're down by 4 or 6 points, the attitude in the building is going to feel a little bit, here we go again. You can't have that. You got to get this Marriott Center off the charts, an elite Marriott Center atmosphere game if you want to pull this one off. And it can be done. BYU could take down this Houston team. It's only a 2.5-point spread. So that speaks to, one, the venue, but two, this BYU team, the top end of this roster, because, again, those three guys can get you 70. But what can you get from the rest of this team? There's not much else that you can count on. Kaba Keita's got to show up in this game. He's got to be huge. He's got to be knocking on the doorstep of maybe a double-double for BYU, or at least get you like 6 points and get you 11 boards, somewhere in that territory for the Cougars if they're going to pull off this game. Let's give you my score prediction right now here on Cougar Tracks.
Score prediction. Will BYU come out on top? It's time for Mitch's score prediction for the next game.
It's a tough game to forecast. If BYU wasn't on this losing skid and they were playing better, I'd pick BYU decisively. I'd not decisively, but I think I'd comfortably pick BYU to win. I'm going to go with the Cougs of Houston, of Clutch City, because I like the way they're trending right now. Defensively, they are looking elite again. This Houston Cougars team holding their last two opponents to 55 points or less. I think BYU has some offensive firepower in this game, but I'm going to go with Houston, 79, BYU 74 in this game. Hey, prove me wrong, BYU. Let's see this losing streak end. I think BYU is going to have opportunities late in this game. I don't think it's going to be like the Arizona game where they get blown out. And I know that final score ended up much closer than it appeared, and same with the Kansas game. But I think this is going to be a back-and-forth battle where Houston just ultimately comes out on top in the end. And I don't want to have a moral victory here, but you could build something off of that if you're BYU. But if you get blown out, man, this season will have some real questions going forward if they get hammered by this Houston team, and they're more than capable of doing that even in the Marriott Center. So huge game, tip-off at 8:30 between BYU and Houston. And that's going to do it for this edition of Cougar Tracks. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts, and I'll talk to you on Saturday night, post-game reaction show, and then back on schedule on Monday here on Cougar Tracks, and it's powered by KSL Sports.